From today, this is where you will be staying. We are tired of being mocked because of your sickness. This is your new home now.
Was it my fault I am like this?
Remove your hand from my pot.
Ijeoma was born under a harvest moon, and Mama Nkechi carried her through the village with her head high, showing her to every compound. "See my daughter," she would say. "See how Chukwu has blessed me." Papa Okonkwo built her a small stool of iroko wood so she could sit beside him when elders came to drink palm wine. And he would say, "This one will make a great marriage one day. Look at her face." By the time Ijeoma turned 20, the sickness had already begun its quiet work. It started with her fingers curling inward, then her spine bowing so slowly that at first only her mother noticed, the way a mother notices when bread has gone the smallest bit stale. Ijeoma herself felt it before anyone spoke of it, a tightness in her knees when she knelt to grind pepper, a shortness in her breath when she climbed the path to the stream. She said nothing. She told herself it would pass. By 23 she had lost 3 inches. The women at the stream began to whisper behind cupped hands, not bothering to lower their voices enough. "Nkechi's daughter's folding like cloth," one said, and laughed the laugh of someone who thinks cruelty is merely observation. Ijeoma heard it. She carried her water pot home with her eyes on the ground, and that night she did not eat. Mama Nkechi began to change first. She stopped taking Ijeoma to the market with her. When neighbors asked after her daughter, she would say only, "She is inside," and change the subject quickly, as though the girl were a debt she did not wish to discuss. At night, Ijeoma would hear her mother through the mud wall, saying to Papa Okonkwo, "What have I done to deserve this shame? Every woman in this village has daughters who stand tall and marry well. Mine is shrinking before my eyes like a yam left too long in the sun." Ijeoma pressed her back against the cold wall on her side and wept without sound, because she had learned that even her weeping annoyed them now. Papa Okonkwo's love curdled slower, but it curdled all the same. He had once carried her on his shoulders through the yam festival. Now, when she walked beside him to the barn, he quickened his pace so that people would not immediately see they belonged to each other. Once, an old friend of his called out, "Okonkwo, is that your daughter behind you? Chai, what has happened to her?" And Papa Okonkwo did not answer. He simply lifted his hand as if to wave away a fly, and kept walking. Ijeoma stood in the road a moment, watching her father's back grow smaller, and understood that she was already becoming a thing he wished to outrun. At 25, she could no longer reach the top shelf where the grain was kept. Her mother, instead of helping her, threw the pestle down in frustration. "You are useless to me now," she said. "A daughter who cannot even pound cassava. What use are you? People are already saying I gave birth to a curse." Ijeoma bent, what little bending her body still allowed, to pick up the pestle, and her mother did not thank her. She only sighed the sigh of a woman burdened. The children of the village began to follow her at a distance when she went to fetch firewood, chanting a rhyme they had made of her name, twisting it into something about shrinking things and small folded creatures. Ijeoma walked faster than her body wanted to go, her chest burning, and did not turn around, because turning around meant seeing their faces, and their faces were the faces of children who had learned cruelty from watching their own parents. At home, she began to eat her meals alone, outside near the goat pen, because her mother said her presence at the table spoiled people's appetite. He had stopped calling her by name and had taken instead to saying, "the girl" or "her," as though naming her still might cost him something he was no longer willing to pay. One evening, a suitor's family came to inquire about Ijeoma's younger cousin, and in the middle of the visit, someone asked lightly, "And the older one, is she not yet married?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing Ijeoma had ever heard. Her mother laughed, a high false laugh, and said, "She has her own troubles. Let us not speak of her tonight." Ijeoma, listening from behind the kitchen wall, felt something in her chest fold smaller than her spine ever had. By 26, she used a stick to walk, and her shoulders had rounded so that she could no longer look far ahead, only down at her own feet, at the dust, at the small triangle of world left to her. Her mother stopped introducing her as her daughter at all. When people asked, Mama Nkechi would say, "She is someone who stays with us." And something in Ijeoma quietly finished dying when she first heard those words. It was on a morning near the start of the dry season that Papa Okonkwo told her to gather her things. He did not look at her as he spoke. "We are taking you to your aunt in the next village," he said. Though there was no aunt, and Ijeoma, 27 years old and bent nearly double, must have known this, must have felt to her stomach the shape of the lie. But she gathered her small bundle anyway, because refusing had never once been allowed to her. They walked for most of the day, past the farms, past the stream, into forests neither of them knew, where the trees grew close and the light came down in coins. When they stopped, Papa Okonkwo would not meet her eyes. "Wait here," he said. "We will bring the rest of your things." Mama Nkechi said nothing at all. She simply turned, and Ijeoma watched her mother's back. The same back she had once pressed her small forehead against, running to hide from thunder, disappear between the trees. She waited until the coins of light turned orange, then gray, then nothing. She understood, the way a body understands cold before the mind agrees to name it, that no one was coming back. It was an old woman named Adaeze who found her 3 days later, curled at the foot of an iroko tree, more dead than alive, having eaten only what small fruit she could reach with her stick. Adaeze did not ask her what sickness had done this to her body. She only knelt, slowly, for her own knees were old, and said, "Come, my hut is not far." She carried water to Ijeoma's lips with her own cupped hands, and did not flinch at the shape of her. Under Adaeze's roof, Ijeoma learned that there was a bark, ground fine and boiled with 3 particular leaves, that could ease the tightening sickness, could even in time loosen what it had bound. Adaeze had learned it from her own mother, who had learned it from a woman before her. She taught it to Ijeoma slowly, patiently, the way one teaches a person who has never once been taught with patience before. "Your body is not your shame," the old woman told her one evening by the fire. "It was never your shame to carry." Ijeoma wept then, but it was a different weeping than before, the kind that empties a wound rather than deepening it. 2 years passed this way. Ijeoma's spine did not fully unbend, but her breathing eased. Her strength returned enough to walk without the stick some days, and something in her that had folded smaller and smaller, finally, slowly, began to open again. Not her body, but the girl inside it. It was a hunter from her old village who recognized her one afternoon at the forest's edge, and ran back with the news that she still lived. Papa Okonkwo did not come. It was Mama Nkechi who came, alone, her own back now beginning to bow, her fingers beginning to curl in the old familiar way, the sickness having found her at last, as such sicknesses sometimes do within a bloodline. She stood at the edge of Adaeze's clearing, and called out, "Ijeoma, my daughter, I need the medicine, please. I am your mother." Ijeoma stood in the doorway a long moment, looking at the woman who had once loved her under a harvest moon, and had later called her someone who stays with us. She thought of the goat pen, of the dust road, of the light turning gray between the trees. "You left me here to die," Ijeoma said, quietly without cruelty, only truth. "I will not follow you back into a house that was ashamed of me." Mama Nkechi wept and pleaded, but Ijeoma did not move from the doorway, and did not send the medicine, and did not return. Mama Nkechi's body folded in the months that followed, the way Ijeoma's once had, with no one beside her who knew the bark and the 3 leaves, until the sickness finished what shame had started long before it. Ijeoma stayed in the forest with Adaeze, who had given her in the end what her own mother's house could not, a place where her body was simply a body,